When did a bridesmaid dress threaten to ruin your life and your friendship? I just found out my best friend boss Jeremy is literally threatening to sue me over a bridesmaid dress after I quit the wedding and my job, and I am sitting here at 3:17 a.m. trying to decide if I should just call a lawyer or block his number forever. This is not even the messy part yet. Seriously, buckle up. I need to vent this entire timeline because I feel like I'm losing my mind, and the only thing keeping me sane right now is knowing I have a Costco-sized tub of Talenti gelato waiting for me in the freezer. I'm Noah Ivanov, 24M. And for the last 18 months, I have been living, breathing, and occasionally stress-crying in the orbit of Jeremy O'Brien, 30M. Jeremy is or was my best friend, my professional mentor, and honestly the reason I got into this whole corporate wellness mental health advocacy field in the first place. He's the golden child, you know. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect sounding life, running the high-profile corporate wellness department on the 5th floor of that giant glass building downtown. When I met Jeremy about 2 years ago, I was still doing temp work, trying to finish my certification, driving my beat-up 2018 Honda Civic with the perpetually cracked windshield. He swooped in, offered me a junior position almost immediately, and we hit it off. He was this beacon of positive energy, always talking about mindfulness and boundaries, ironically. Spoiler alert, he didn't practice what he preached. I quickly became his right-hand man, which meant I was also the sounding board for his entire dramatic life, including the ongoing, exhausting saga of his engagement to a woman named Chloe who, TBH, was lovely but completely overwhelmed by Jeremy's constant need for perfection and control. Things were great professionally, at least for the first year. I loved the job, the paycheck was solid, and I felt like I was actually making a difference. I was getting paid overtime, I was accruing PTO, everything was legal. I was making $65K, which felt huge compared to the $15 an hour I was making before. Then the wedding planning started, and it felt like Jeremy decided my primary role shifted from mental health advocate to unpaid executive assistant and chief emotional support human. He asked me to be a groomsman, which was sweet, but then he immediately pivoted. "No, wait," he said during a work lunch at Chipotle. He always got the same bowl, extra brown rice, no beans, double chicken, extra guac, $14.89 every time. "You're too organized for a groomsman, you need to be a bridesmaid." I paused, mid-bite of my barbacoa burrito. "Jeremy, I'm a man." He waved his hand dismissively. "Details, Noah. You're the one who can actually manage the bachelorette party and make sure Chloe doesn't have a meltdown over the floral arrangements. You're my man of honor disguised as a bridesmaid." I laughed it off then because I'm a people pleaser and Jeremy is impossible to say no to. He looks at you with those big earnest blue eyes and everything he says sounds like a TED Talk mixed with a demanding business proposal. So I agreed. I became the only male bridesmaid. I know it sounds ridiculous, and past me was such an idiot for not setting a boundary right there. This is where the friendship truly turned manipulative. Jeremy started treating my personal time like it was PTO he owned. One major issue was his father, Elijah Brown, 31M. Yes, Jeremy, 30M, has a 31-year-old father. It's actually his stepfather who married Jeremy's mother when Jeremy was a teenager. Elijah is this intense, deeply religious guy who runs a small, non-profit ministry focused on traditional family values. Jeremy constantly stressed about Elijah, particularly about the wedding. He was terrified Elijah would judge the unconventional aspects, like having a male bridesmaid me, or the fact that Chloe had tattoos. Jeremy was trying to maintain this flawless golden child facade for everyone, especially Elijah. Jeremy would call me, sometimes 27 calls in 1 hour, needing me to listen to him vent about Elijah's passive-aggressive comments about the wedding registry. I'd be trying to meet deadlines for my real job, you know, the corporate wellness programs, and my iPhone 14 would be constantly buzzing. "Noah, listen to this," he'd whisper, usually around 8 p.m. when I was trying to relax and watch Netflix. Elijah just texted, "I pray the unity you build honors the Lord's plan. Can't wait for your commitment ceremony." "It's a wedding, Jeremy, not a commitment ceremony," I'd say, trying to sound supportive instead of annoyed. Exactly. He knows I hate that term. He's trying to gaslight me. "You have to talk me down, Noah. My pulse is at 110. I need those breathing exercises we taught on Tuesday at 11:47 a.m. He was sucking the mental health out of me. I literally started getting stress acne and had to increase my therapy appointments. Then there's Benjamin Turner, 66M, the head of HR and Jeremy's sponsor from his recovering addict group. Ben is the only person who sees Jeremy clearly, but he's too polite to step in unless it's directly HR related. Ben is quiet, always drinking lukewarm coffee from a giant travel mug, and occasionally he'd pull me aside in the break room by the stale Panera bagels. "Noah," Ben said one Friday around 5:30 p.m. when Jeremy had left me drowning in reports. "Jeremy is a demanding personality. You need to remember to protect your sobriety, so to speak. Your boundaries are important even if you're not dealing with substance use." I got it. Ben was telling me Jeremy was toxic, but Ben couldn't interfere because Jeremy wasn't technically breaking any rules, just my spirit. The final straw, or maybe the fifth final straw, happened 2 weeks ago. Jeremy decided the bridesmaids needed special custom dresses. Not just any dresses, but these hideous burnt orange silk gowns that cost $347 each. We had to pay for them ourselves, obviously. He zelled me $50 toward it and said, "Think of this as an investment in the memory." I think he meant think of this as me paying for 1/7 of a third of your life for the next 6 months. The whole bachelorette party planning was a nightmare. We needed matching Apple Watch bands, we needed custom cookies, we needed a professional photographer. I used 80 hours of my accrued PTO in a single month just managing the vendor calls. I finally broke last Tuesday, the day after I paid $43.67 for a Trader Joe's grocery run that included nothing but snacks I didn't need because I was too stressed to cook. Jeremy had called me at 6 a.m. I need you to call the venue, Noah. The linen supplier is missing the exact shade of teal. You handle it. And also text Chloe and tell her to stop ordering Ben & Jerry's because she needs to fit into her dress. Gently, of course. Use that mental health language. I felt my chest tighten. I was literally lying in bed, still exhausted from only sleeping 4 hours because I spent the previous night compiling a 50-page presentation for him. I had 47 missed Slack notifications waiting for me. I texted him back. Not just a text, I did the thing where you type out a whole manifesto. Me 6:04 a.m. Hey Jeremy. Look, I can't do this anymore. I'm drowning at work and I need to step back from the wedding planning. I simply don't have the bandwidth for the maid of honor duties right now. I'll still be at the wedding, of course. His response came back instantly, read receipts on. Jeremy 6:05 a.m. What? You're kidding. This is insane. Jeremy 6:06 a.m. I need you to understand how much pressure I'm under with Elijah right now. This is a betrayal of our friendship. Who's going to run the rehearsal dinner seating chart? Jeremy 6:07 a.m. We just had the dress tailored. You owe me $347. That's a non-refundable deposit. Are you overreacting again? The $347 hit me harder than the accusation of betrayal. I paid that money. I bought that dress. I replied, I paid for my dress, Jeremy. It's mine. You don't owe me anything. I just need to be a guest. Jeremy called me immediately. I let it go to voicemail. I listened to it while I was getting dressed, and his voice was cold, sharp, and totally devoid of the mindfulness persona he sells for a living. Noah, you are seriously jeopardizing months of planning. I need loyalty. I thought you were my friend. If you can't commit to the wedding, you need to think about your commitment to this department. This is disappointing, very disappointing. I was shaking, literally shaking, pulling on my office clothes. The implicit threat was crystal clear. Quit the wedding, lose your job. I walked into the office on the 5th floor that morning. I was wired, drinking my gas station coffee, determined to just do my actual job and ignore the passive-aggressive Teams messages he was sending. Just following up on that teal linen issue, Noah. Hope you're enjoying your much-needed break. I went into Benjamin Turner's office around 10 a.m., not even scheduling the meeting. I was done, just done. Ben, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I need to resign, effective immediately. I can't work for Jeremy anymore. Ben looked up, a sigh escaping his lips. He didn't look surprised. I understand, Noah. I honestly thought this was coming. We handled the paperwork quickly. I signed the documents, handed over my work laptop, and by 11:30 a.m. I was walking out of the building. I felt this incredible wave of relief mixed with utter panic about affording my $1,247 rent in apartment 3B next month. I thought that was the end of it. Wrong. I blocked Jeremy on everything: phone, social media, Venmo, Cash App, even his professional Slack profile. I needed space to breathe and figure out my next career move, which after this whole mess will definitely be far away from corporate structures and manipulative friendships. Maybe I'll start a freelance practice. Maybe I'll move back to my mom's house in Westfield until I sort things out. Then the bomb dropped yesterday evening while I was trying to de-stress by watching Love is Blind and eating leftover pizza. I got a registered letter delivered via FedEx. It was from Jeremy's attorney. The subject line was, and I quote, "Demand for restitution and damages related to breach of agreement." It was completely unhinged. Jeremy was arguing that by resigning as a bridesmaid and quitting my job, which he framed as leaving under duress after failing to meet agreed-upon professional and personal commitments, I had caused him significant emotional distress and financial loss. And then I saw it, the actual dollar amount he was claiming I owed him, itemized. One replacement bridesmaid dress and new tailoring fee, $450 because my dress was tailored to me and apparently he can't find a replacement. 2 non-refundable deposit for bachelorette party activities. He claimed I was responsible for $683. Costs associated with emergency replacement of junior corporate wellness advocate, $1,504. Time spent by Jeremy O'Brien managing the resulting chaos at 150/HR, $750. The total amount demanded was $3,370. I literally felt my stomach drop and my vision got blurry. I wasn't just losing a friend and a job, I was being financially persecuted by the mental health advocate who claimed I was betraying him. Attached to the letter was a small, separate note typed on plain printer paper. It wasn't signed by the lawyer. It was Jeremy. It read, "The dress is tailored for a man, Noah. You knew this commitment mattered. Pay the $3,370 by the end of the week or we escalate this. Also, Elijah wants to know why you quit your calling. We all need to be held accountable for our choices, don't we?" I looked at the number, $3,370. It was completely absurd. I was raging. I wanted to key his stupid BMW he can't actually afford. I wanted to post the entire letter on LinkedIn. I went to bed numb, but I woke up today absolutely wired, resolved to find a lawyer. But then this afternoon, I got a text message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it thinking it was spam. The text read, "You need to know what he did with the dress." I immediately replied, "Who is this?" The person didn't respond for 5 minutes. I was staring at the typing dots, my heart absolutely pounding against my ribs. Finally, the message came through. It was a picture of the burnt orange bridesmaid dress. It was clearly in a hotel room, hanging in a closet, still in the plastic bag. And then 2 more texts. Unknown number, he sold it to a stripper named Candy who is going to wear it for his bachelor party this weekend. Unknown number, he didn't want the dress back because he bought it for Elijah's son. Ask him about Elijah's other son. What the actual hell? Elijah Brown 31M, the religious extremist parent, has another son, and Jeremy 30M bought my bridesmaid dress for him. And it's going to be worn by a stripper. I checked the area code of the text. It was the same one Benjamin Turner, 66M, uses. I am sitting here now staring at the demand letter and this text, and I need to know, is this a threat? Is this Ben trying to warn me? Is Jeremy secretly doing something completely unhinged involving his stepfather's family? And what does any of this have to do with me quitting my job? I need to find out what Jeremy's actual connection is to Elijah's son, because the idea of paying $3,370 to a man who sells my tailored $347 dress to a stripper and involves his ultra-conservative stepfather's family in some secret drama has me absolutely livid. I have to go back to the office or at least find Ben, but I don't know who is on Jeremy's side anymore. I'm dying to know what Jeremy is hiding from Elijah. I need to know if this is the leverage I need to make him drop the lawsuit. I just texted the unknown number back. Meet me at the Starbucks on Main Street tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Be specific. Who is Elijah's other son? I hit send. Now I wait. And I'm praying this isn't another trap. Because if Jeremy thinks he can manipulate me into paying that amount, he has another thing coming. I didn't sleep a wink. I just stared at that text from the unknown number and kept repeating the phrase, Elijah's other son, in my head like it was some kind of messed up corporate mantra. The idea that Jeremy 30M was using the wedding, the lawsuit, and even my tailored bridesmaid dress to hide some deep, dark secret involving his ultra-conservative stepfather, Elijah 31M, was seriously next level. This wasn't just about a $347 dress. This was about control and manipulation on a whole new scale. So 2 days later, I was sitting at the Starbucks on Main Street at 6:58 a.m., nursing a black coffee that tasted suspiciously like dirt, wearing clothes I probably shouldn't wear in public anymore. I was paranoid. I had my phone charging, ready to hit record if the person who showed up was somehow Jeremy in a terrible disguise. At 7:02 a.m., the door chimed, and in walked Benjamin Turner 66M. He was wearing the same slightly too big blazer he always wore and carrying his giant travel mug that probably holds about a gallon of lukewarm coffee. He didn't come to the counter, he just slid into the booth opposite me. Noah, he said, his voice low and gravelly the way it always is. He didn't even acknowledge the fact that he texted me from an unknown number or the fact that I had quit my job 2 weeks ago. I didn't think you'd come. You texted me a picture of my tailored dress and implied Jeremy was using a stripper named Candy to cover up a secret family member tied to Elijah. I shot back, skipping the pleasantries. I absolutely came. Who is Elijah's other son, Ben? Ben took a long, slow sip of his coffee. He looked tired. Not corporate tired, but soul tired. His name is Caleb, he's 22, he's not Elijah's biological son, but Jeremy's mother adopted him when he was 17. Caleb identifies as non-binary. Elijah, as you know, is not accepting. I leaned back, trying to process this. Jeremy has a secret non-binary half-brother named Caleb, and Elijah, the religious extremist parent, hates it. Okay, this tracks with the golden child facade Jeremy maintains. What does that have to do with my dress and the lawsuit? I asked. Ben sighed. Jeremy has been funding Caleb's education and housing for the last 2 years, hiding it from Elijah. Jeremy is terrified of disappointing Elijah because Elijah controls the family trust, the one Jeremy relies on to maintain his perfect life and department funding. Wait, so Jeremy isn't golden child just because he's naturally perfect, he's doing it for the money. I whispered, feeling like an idiot for believing the whole TED Talk persona. It's always the money, Noah, Ben confirmed, or the approval, which in Jeremy's world is the same thing. When the wedding planning started, Caleb was invited, but Elijah explicitly told Jeremy that Caleb needed to present traditionally or not attend. Caleb refused. This is where the bridesmaid dress came in. Ben explained that Jeremy had originally intended for me to wear the dress, yes, but he realized that the truly tailored garment designed for a male body but in a feminine style was a powerful act of solidarity. Jeremy had convinced Caleb to wear the exact same tailored dress to the wedding as an act of quiet defiance against Elijah. He wanted Caleb to wear the dress, the burnt orange silk monstrosity. Yes, it was supposed to be a secret rebellion. He told Caleb he was buying it as a gift, and Caleb was initially excited about the statement it would make. Jeremy even got a second one, tailored your dress. I felt sick. So I was bait, I was the decoy male bridesmaid so Jeremy could normalize the idea before Caleb showed up. In Jeremy's mind, yes, you were paving the way, Ben confirmed. When you quit, Jeremy panicked. Not because he lost the rehearsal dinner seating chart manager, but because he lost his cover story. He had 2 tailored male dresses and now only 1 approved male bridesmaid. Elijah was already suspicious of the male bridesmaid thing. But the stripper, Ben admitted that Jeremy had a meltdown after I quit, and when Caleb refused to take my dress too, saying he wasn't going to wear the costume of betrayal, Jeremy completely lost it. The stripper, Candy, was the best man's idea for a quick, trashy cover. Jeremy told Caleb that he had to sell my dress to cover the expense of finding a new decoy male bridesmaid. Ben handed me a sealed envelope. I pulled some old Teams chats and a couple of internal emails from the department server before I realized I needed to step back completely. This is the only evidence linking Jeremy's financial panic to Caleb and the dress situation. He stood up. I am out, Noah. I was Jeremy's sponsor for years. He's going backwards and I can't be part of it. I told him he needed to clean up his side of the street, but he just sued you instead. I'm stepping down from HR next month. I am done with corporate life. Please Please use this information wisely, and whatever you do, do not mention Caleb's name to Elijah. Jeremy will absolutely destroy your life if you jeopardize his inheritance. And just like that, Ben Turner walked out, leaving me with a cold coffee, a racing heart, and the keys to Jeremy's biggest, most protected secret. I opened the envelope immediately. Inside were 3 laminated printouts. One was a text thread between Jeremy and someone labeled "See Caleb," obviously. See, last Tuesday, 9:15 a.m., I saw Noah quit. Did he say why? Jeremy, 9:17 a.m., he betrayed me, he's unstable. I told him I needed loyalty. Anyway, I need you to confirm you're fitting this weekend. Do you want the burnt orange? See, 9:20 a.m., I can't, Jay, not after what you did to Noah. It feels wrong. I'm not wearing it as a political statement for your convenience. Jeremy, 9:25 a.m., you need to do this, see, for me. Elijah's watching my every move. If you don't wear it, I have to explain why I have 2 custom gowns tailored for men. If this goes south, I lose everything. The second printout was a spreadsheet titled Wedding Budget Black Hole, and under Unforeseen Expenses it listed $3,370 boundary management reparations to NI, the exact amount he sued me for. He literally filed a lawsuit and called the amount boundary management. I almost choked on my coffee. The third printout was the kicker, an invoice from the tailor, showing 2 separate transactions for the same custom suit gown, one paid by Jeremy and one paid by me. The description for my dress transaction was custom gown, size 40L style, autumn flame. The one paid by Jeremy was custom gown, size 38R style, solidarity. So the $3,370 wasn't real damages. It was a punitive measure designed to silence me and cover up his financial panic about Caleb. NGL, I felt a terrible mix of vindication and fear. A week went by where I felt like a spy on a really low budget. I was still jobless, burning through my meager savings, and the $3,370 demand was looming. I had a phone consultation with a legal aid lawyer, $150 just for 30 minutes, who basically told me that small claims court is a mess. But if I could prove Jeremy's suit was frivolous and malicious, I might have a case for countersuing, but I'd need undeniable evidence. That spreadsheet and text thread are pretty undeniable, I told my friend Sarah on the phone, pacing my tiny apartment. Noah, listen to me, she said, sounding like the pragmatic lawyer she actually is. Jeremy is spiraling. He is using litigation as a weapon. If you threaten him with this Caleb evidence, he will either fold immediately or he will go scorched earth. Are you prepared for war with the golden child? I wasn't. But I was certainly prepared to stop eating ramen for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Then the escalation I was dreading happened. I got a text message on a Sunday morning, not from Jeremy, but from Elijah Brown, 31M himself. I hadn't blocked Elijah because I didn't think he even had my personal number. Elijah Brown, 9:42 a.m., Brother Noah. I was deeply saddened to hear that you have stepped away from your calling in the wellness department. Jeremy tells me you were struggling with commitments, but I pray you find your way back to God's purpose. We spoke briefly about the wedding and your role. I hope the money issue can be resolved quickly, as financial strife often masks spiritual distress. Elijah Brown, 9:45 a.m. Jeremy also mentioned you were asking unusual questions about family matters. Please do not worry yourself over the struggles of the O'Brien house. Your focus needs to be on your repentance. Repentance, I wanted to scream. Jeremy didn't just sue me for money. He used his religious extremist stepfather to manipulate my moral standing. He framed me as someone who had abandoned my calling and was asking unusual questions about the family. He was preemptively poisoning the well just in case I decided to leverage the Caleb situation. I was so angry I couldn't sit still. I realized that my career change, getting out of the corporate wellness field, wasn't just desirable anymore, it was necessary for my survival. Jeremy had poisoned the well everywhere I knew, even extending his control into my perceived spiritual life. By Tuesday, I had scheduled a meeting with a high-profile, expensive lawyer, Sarah's colleague Mark. I had to use a chunk of my emergency savings, but I decided this wasn't about the money anymore. This was about shutting down Jeremy's reign of terror. I compiled a folder: the demand letter, the receipts for my dress payment, the boundary management spreadsheet, the Teams chat screenshot, and the text from Elijah. It was a beautiful, terrible package of evidence. The meeting with Mark the lawyer was scheduled for 2 p.m. on Thursday. I dressed conservatively, practiced my calm voice, and told myself this was the start of my new Jeremy-free life. And then, because the universe absolutely hates me, I ran into Jeremy O'Brien in the elevator lobby of the legal building. It wasn't even a big building. It was one of those old downtown buildings that smelled faintly of lemon, cleaner, and desperation. I was waiting for the elevator to go to the 14th floor. Jeremy was stepping out of the elevator coming down from the 10th floor. He froze when he saw me. He was wearing an expensive navy suit, the one he wore when presenting to the board, and he looked impeccable. His golden child mask was firmly in place. "Noah," he said too loudly, forcing a genuine-sounding smile. "Wow, what are you doing here?" I gripped my folder tightly. I hadn't seen him since I resigned, and seeing him in person, that face that had mentored me, befriended me, and then ruthlessly tried to destroy me, made my hands shake. "I'm meeting a lawyer, Jeremy," I said, trying to keep my voice even. His smile tightened, instantly flipping from charming to predatory. "A lawyer over $3,370. Noah, that's excessive. You know this could have been resolved privately. Just pay the restitution for the damages you caused and we can all move on." "Damages?" I laughed, a raw, ugly sound. "You call your panic over Caleb damages? You know $3,370 is exactly what you budgeted for boundary management in that spreadsheet, BTW." The mask completely shattered. His eyes went wide and his jaw dropped just slightly. The panic was instantaneous, visceral. How did you? He whispered, looking around the empty lobby. I have the spreadsheet, Jeremy. I have the tailor invoice showing you bought the solidarity dress for Caleb. And I have the text chain where Caleb calls you out for using me as a decoy, I continued, pressing my advantage. I wasn't shaking anymore. I felt a chilling, focused calm. I am not paying you $3,370. You sued me because I quit the wedding and you thought you could use me to cover up the fact that you're defying Elijah and trying to protect Caleb while simultaneously being terrified of losing your inheritance. He leaned toward me, his voice dangerously low. You do not mention that name ever, you understand? This is serious. You don't know what Elijah is capable of, Noah. I think I do, I countered. He already texted me about my repentance. He's terrified of having a queer family member and you're terrified of losing your funding. Your whole mental health advocate persona is built on a mountain of control and deceit. You want to talk about accountability? Let's talk about the fact that you claimed I owed you money for a dress you sold to a stripper, which was the cover for your fear of Elijah discovering Caleb's statement gown. Jeremy looked utterly defeated, the life draining out of his face. He wasn't the golden child anymore. He was a terrified 30-year-old in a suit. If I take this to court, Jeremy, I am bringing everything. I'll subpoena Ben, I'll release the text, and I will make sure the deposition includes every single detail about Caleb, Elijah, and the entire manipulative mess. You won't just lose $3,370, you'll lose the trust fund, and you'll definitely lose Chloe, who NGL deserves better than this whole charade. He stood there for a long time, just breathing heavily. The silence stretched until the elevator chimed again. Fine, he ground out. The suit is dropped. I'll call Mark's firm right now. You don't get the dress back, but you won't hear from my lawyer again. You owe me nothing. No, I corrected him. You owe me an apology, Jeremy, but I'm not waiting for it. I turned and walked away, pressing the up button. As the elevator doors closed, I saw him pulling his phone out, already dialing. He looked like he was going to throw up. So 2 days later, Friday afternoon, I got a very terse email from Jeremy's attorney confirming that the demand for restitution and damages had been formally withdrawn without prejudice. No explanation, no apology, just legal jargon confirming my victory. I immediately sent a screenshot to Sarah, who replied with a single text, "Get ice cream." I still hadn't figured out my rent situation, but the sheer relief of not being sued by my former best friend and boss was huge. I didn't hear from Jeremy again, but I did hear from Chloe. She texted me late Sunday night. She apologized profusely for Jeremy's behavior and said the wedding was postponed indefinitely. She admitted she knew something about Caleb, but didn't know the full extent of Jeremy's manipulation or the severity of his fear regarding Elijah. She said she felt completely disposable, just like the bridesmaid dress. She and Jeremy were on a break, which TBH sounds like a permanent break for her own sanity. The aftermath was messy as predicted. Ben Turner, true to his word, resigned from HR quietly 3 weeks later. He sent me an email saying he was moving to Vermont to teach yoga and practice sobriety away from corporate stress. I thanked him for saving my life and he just replied, "Protect your boundaries, no." I officially started the career change path. That month after the lawsuit was dropped, I moved out of my expensive $1,247 apartment 3B and into a much smaller studio near the community college. It's $850 and I can walk to the library. I had to sell my Honda Civic because of a massive repair bill I couldn't afford, and now I bike everywhere. My credit score took a small hit from the immediate financial crunch, but honestly, I'm lighter. I set up my own freelance consulting practice. I call it True North Advocacy. My first few clients are small businesses looking for genuine, non-toxic workplace wellness strategies. I use the Jeremy O'Brien experience as my case study without naming names, of course. I talk about the absolute necessity of boundaries, not just as a buzzword, but as the foundational element of mental health. It's ironically what Jeremy should have been teaching. I realized that for 18 months I let Jeremy define my value. I confused being useful with being loved, and I confused professional mentorship with personal servitude. When he asked me to be the male bridesmaid, it wasn't an honor. It was an expansion of his control, a test of my servitude. And Elijah, I don't know the full fallout with Caleb, but I did get one final, cryptic text from Jeremy about 2 months after I left. Jeremy, 1:34 p.m. Elijah knows, not everything, but enough. He cut my funding for the department. You won. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I didn't feel happiness, not exactly. I felt peace. I learned the hard way that when the golden child tells you to prioritize their emotional needs over your own, they are not your friend, they are your captor. I still have bad days where I wake up in a panic thinking about the $3,370 or the stress of being unemployed. But yesterday, I successfully negotiated my first contract for $8,000, and I went out and bought myself a ridiculously expensive small container of gourmet gelato. It wasn't the Talenti tub I dreamt about when I was stress crying, but it was mine. My life isn't perfect. I'm eating cheap groceries and navigating the terrifying world of self-employment, but I am sleeping. I'm not answering 27 calls in an hour. And when I look in the mirror, I see Noah Ivanov, mental health advocate who actually practices what he preaches now. I traded the fancy corporate job for freedom and self-respect. Best career change ever, NGL. We'll update if Jeremy finally implodes publicly, but honestly, I hope he finds a therapist who can help him unpack his Elijah issues. I'm just grateful I'm not the one paying the bill for his emotional labor anymore. Stay strong, protect your PTO, and never, ever agree to be a male bridesmaid in burnt orange silk. You deserve better.